Hello and welcome straight from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Qatar and Egypt stress boosting joint efforts to implement the ceasefire deal as Israel resumes ground operations in northern Gaza after the pause since January. EU leaders meet in Brussels backing a statement reaffirming unwavering support for Ukraine's territorial integrity except Hungary's Orban. Home Minister Amit Shah reiterates India's zero tolerance towards left-wing extremism as at least 30 Naxals are eliminated in two separate encounters in Chhattisgarh. And a tight race is on to succeed Thomas Bach as the next International Olympic Committee chief in Greece's Costa Navarino. Result to emerge very shortly. As the Israel-Hamas ceasefire hangs in balance, Qatar and Egypt, the key mediators between Israel and Hamas, have said that there was a need to boost joint efforts to implement the three phases of the Gaza ceasefire deal, a Qatari statement said after Israel resumed military operations in the enclave after the pause since January. Qatar's Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani spoke with Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati in a phone call on Thursday to discuss coordination efforts and the latest developments in Gaza. The Israeli military, on the other hand, said on Thursday it had begun conducting ground activities in the northern Gaza Strip along the coastal route in the area of Beit Lahia. Israel had resumed intense airstrikes and ground operations in Gaza on Tuesday after issuing what it called a last warning to the Hamas. The renewed offensive has come after a brief period of calm since January, and now warnings have also been issued to residents of southern Gaza by the Israelis to vacate. Meanwhile, Hamas's armed wing has said on Thursday that it fired a barrage of rockets against Tel Aviv. Israel's army said it intercepted a projectile fired from Gaza on Thursday, while two others fell in an uninhabited area after air raid sirens was sounded out in Tel Aviv. European leaders convened in Brussels on Thursday for a two-day summit focused on a new support package for Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky joined via video link seeking continuing backing for his war-torn nation. Zelensky said Moscow must stop making unnecessary demands that extend the war, calling for sanctions on Russia to remain in place until it begins pulling out of Ukrainian territory. Zelensky also said that Moscow had continued strikes on Ukraine's energy systems despite Putin agreeing with US counterpart Donald Trump to halt these attacks. All EU leaders except for Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban backed a statement reaffirming unwavering support for Ukraine's territorial integrity. Apart from Ukraine, discussions are also covering European Commission's defense proposals, which urge nations to collaborate on joint military projects and boost purchases of European-made arms. And ahead of this meeting, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz had said that Europe must continue its strong support for Ukraine regardless of any talks between Washington and Moscow to ensure Kyiv is in a position of strength and that a ceasefire is achieved.
For us, it is crucial that Ukraine remains an independent, sovereign and democratic nation, that it can continue on its path towards the European Union, and that it has a strong army of its own even after the peace agreement. These are the things that we must ensure. And of course, this now includes the possibility of a ceasefire on the basis of President Zelensky's proposals. There is now a first step that seems possible in view of the results of the talks between the Russian president and American president.
Meanwhile, Russian and US officials will hold talks on Ukraine in Saudi Arabia on Monday. Earlier, Donald Trump had spoken to both Russia's Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky this week, and the US is also due to hold talks with Kyiv in the coming days. From the Russian side, Grigory Karasin, chairman of the Senate's Committee on International Affairs, and Sergei Beseda, advisor to the head of the FSB Security Service, will attend the talks. President Putin's aide Yuri Ushakov said he had confirmed this after talks with US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Both agreed to send expert groups for the talks. The delegations are due to discuss initiatives that Putin and Trump spoke about regarding the Black Sea. Russia and the US are set to discuss safe shipping in the Black Sea as part of talks on a potential Ukraine peace settlement. The meeting is expected to take place next week in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that while the exact date is yet to be confirmed, it's probably Monday now, expert-level discussions will continue in the coming days.
You remember that we had quite a rich experience in implementing the Black Sea Initiative. We fulfilled all the conditions then, but the conditions in relation to us were never fulfilled. Therefore, of course, all this, as they say, on the shore will have to be discussed in detail, and also other aspects related to the Ukrainian settlement which the parties consider necessary.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer boarded a nuclear-armed submarine as it returned from a patrolling mission after several months. Starmer's visit comes at a time when European countries are increasing defense spending and seeking to reduce their dependence on the US. Prime Minister Starmer told reporters that the Kremlin respects United Kingdom's nuclear arsenal as the country has its own independent deterrent and is committed to NATO. Earlier this week, Britain said a significant number of countries have been willing to station peacekeeping troops in Ukraine. The Kremlin, however, on Thursday accused Europe of militarizing itself and turning into a party of war. Meanwhile, Turkey seized the construction company co-owned by detained Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu on Thursday, based on financial crime investigation reports. Meanwhile, thousands of protesters took to the streets of Istanbul to protest the arrest of the city's mayor on another day. Authorities also detained 37 suspects for allegedly making provocative posts inciting crime and hatred over the detention. Turkey arrested İmamoğlu on Wednesday on charges such as graft and aiding a terrorist group. Also, the deposed mayor has now urged the judiciary to take a stand against the Turkish government's alleged misuse of the court to order his detention. And speaking on the incident, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz sharply criticized the arrest of the mayor of Istanbul, calling the situation a very worrying sign for EU-Turkey relations.
In recent years, we have endeavored to further improve relations between Europe and Turkey. That is why the arrest of such a key opposition politician and the mayor of Istanbul is a very, very bad sign. It is a bad sign for democracy in Turkey, but it is certainly also a bad sign for relations between Europe and Turkey. We can only call for an immediate end to this and for the opposition and the government to compete with each other rather than the opposition being put on trial.
US President Donald Trump will sign a long-anticipated executive order on Thursday that aims to shut down the Department of Education, acting on a key campaign pledge, according to a White House summary seen by a news agency. Even before it was signed, the order was being challenged by a group of Democratic state attorneys generals who filed a lawsuit seeking to block Trump from dismantling the department and halting the layoffs of nearly half of its staff announced last week. The NAACP, a leading civil rights group, also blasted the expected order as unconstitutional. Trump and his billionaire advisor Elon Musk have attempted to shut down government programs and institutions such as the U.S. Agency for International Development without congressional approval. But abolishing the Department of Education would be Trump's first bid to shut down a cabinet-level agency. The European Commission has said on Thursday that its tariffs targeting American goods in retaliation for U.S. levies on steel and aluminium would start in mid-April, 2 weeks later than planned, to give more time for dialogue. U.S. President Trump's 25% tariffs on imports of the metals took effect on the 12th of March, to which the European Union immediately responded with two sets of countermeasures set to begin on the 1st of April and then mid-April. Among the US products set to be targeted have been bourbon, boats and motorbikes. Sources say France, Spain and Italy pushed the European Commission to delay its measures, which have already triggered a Trump threat to hit back at Europe's wine and spirits sector with punishing 200% tariffs. According to sources, bourbon could potentially be withdrawn altogether from the list of targeted goods. The US stocks jumped Wednesday as the Federal Reserve held interest rates steady after a policy meeting. The US Central Bank's rate decision was widely expected, although it also cut its growth forecast for 2025 and hiked its inflation outlook, and that has now led to the markets cooling down today. Here's a report.
The US Federal Reserve paused interest rate cuts again on Wednesday and warned of increased economic uncertainty as it seeks to navigate an economy unnerved by President Donald Trump's stop-start tariff rollout. Policymakers voted to hold the US Central Bank's key lending rate at between 4.25% and 4.5%. They also cut their growth forecast for the year 2025 and hiked their inflation outlook while still penciling in 2 rate cuts this year, in line with their previous forecast in the month of December. US Fed Chief Jerome Powell said that the risk of recession had risen slightly in recent weeks, but was not yet a cause for concern.
It is going to be very difficult to have a precise assessment of how much of inflation is coming from tariffs and from other, and that's already the case. You may have seen that goods inflation moved up pretty significantly in the first 2 months of the year. Trying to track that back to actual tariff increases, given what was tariffed and what was not, very, very challenging. So some of it, the answer is clearly some of it. A good part of it is coming from tariffs, but we'll be working, and so will other forecasters, to try to find the best possible way to separate non-tariff inflation from tariff inflation.
In an unusual move, Fed Governor Christopher Waller opposed the Fed's rate decision because of his colleagues' support for slowing down the pace at which it is shrinking the balance sheet. Now, US President Donald Trump said the Federal Reserve would be better off cutting rates as US tariffs start to ease their way into the economy. All 3 major Wall Street indices closed higher on the news, while government bond yields fell after the Fed announced it would slow down the rate at which it is reducing its balance sheet, which swelled during the pandemic. Most Asian equities also rose Thursday after US Federal Reserve boss Powell suggested any increase in consumer prices caused by tariffs would likely be short-lived. Anamika Pandey's report for DD India.
Now, South Korea's Constitutional Court on Thursday said that it will deliver a decision on Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's impeachment next Monday. Han, who first took over as acting president after Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached for declaring martial law on the 3rd of December last year, and was later impeached himself by Parliament just 13 days after taking office. Han's impeachment came after he declined to immediately appoint 3 justices to fill vacancies at the Constitutional Court. Later, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok assumed the role of acting president of South Korea. Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world as well. Now, the Rwanda-backed M23 armed group has taken control of Walikale, a key mining hub in eastern DR Congo. Security and local sources confirm it has the latest territory fall in the group's ongoing advance. The conflict continues to escalate, raising regional security concerns. Finland has been named the world's happiest country for the 8th consecutive year in the UN-sponsored World Happiness Report. Researchers attribute this to strong democratic institutions, low corruption and a high quality of life. Meanwhile, the US has dropped to its lowest ranking ever. France's iconic Roquefort cheese is celebrating 100 years of its designation of origin. Producers hope the milestone will boost sales amid a long-term decline. The cheese remains a symbol of French gastronomy despite shifting consumer trends. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar shares his vision for a stronger India-Latin America and Caribbean relationship at a conclave in Delhi. And over 1,300 athletes are to participate in Khelo India Para Games in Delhi, which have been inaugurated.
इंडिया में जितने इंडियंस हैं, उतने ही इंडियाज भी. So for the record, this is my India.
This is my Andekha. Unsuna.
Unbelievable India.
This is my favorite designer wear wala India.
My Sakhat Energy Hero India.
এই হলো আমার দুর্দান্ত রোড ট্রিপের ইন্ডিয়া.
So India, join the Waves Explorer Challenge.
Show us what makes you say, for the record.
This is my India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar shared his vision for a stronger India-LAC relationship at the 10th CII India-LAC conclave in New Delhi on Thursday. Speaking at the session on theme Advancing Economic Alliances for Collaborative Growth, Dr. Jaishankar said that in the current times of post-COVID era and conflicts, the need of the hour is to de-risk global economy from concentration of power. He therefore stressed that a focus should be on reliable and resilient supply chains.
Clearly, there is a need to de-risk the global economy from the dangers of over-concentration in any single geography. But we also need to build reliable and resilient supply chains. At the same time, because we have now moved decisively, irrevocably into the digital era, we need to ensure trust and transparency when it comes to selection of partners.
Dr. Jaishankar also referred to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to Guyana for the India CARICOM summit, saying the potential of the ties with the region lie mainly in trade, technology, tourism, talent and tradition.
Last year, while visiting the LAC region, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the development of a portal, partnerindia.org. It would focus on the 5 T's: trade, technology, tourism, talent and tradition. Once developed and boarded, it would be the port of first call for those who are keen to engage with each other. We expect this portal to materialize by the end of the year, and hopefully it would contribute to making this conclave an even smarter deliberation.
The minister also held a comprehensive discussion on bilateral cooperation with Bolivia's Foreign Minister Celinda Sosa Lunda in New Delhi on Thursday. The talks underscored India's commitment to strengthening ties, highlighted by the recent opening of a new embassy in La Paz. Furthering this partnership, both nations signed an agreement on quick impact projects, marking another step in deepening collaboration. Commonwealth Secretary-General-elect Shirley Bachui arrived in India on Thursday. During her visit, Bachui will meet External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, and the two will hold discussions upon various matters related to the Commonwealth. She is the former Minister for Foreign Affairs of Ghana. Bachui will assume office as the 7th Secretary-General of the Commonwealth on the 1st of April. Slovakia looks forward to hosting India's President Draupadi Murmu soon. Visiting Slovakian Foreign Minister Juraj Blanar, Juraj Blanar, says President Murmu's visit can be expected to further boost the bilateral ties. The minister spoke exclusively to DD India's Ramesh Ramachandran in New Delhi.
The last visit we have on a high level, it was a visit of my counterpart, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jaishankar. It was in 2022. So we are really looking forward to visit of Her Excellency President of India at the beginning of April, so with the business delegation as well. So this will be the very important part of our strengthening tie between our countries.
And Slovakia also says that India, as a voice of the Global South, is an important stakeholder in the Ukraine peace process.
Finally, everyone understands that this peace should be guaranteed from the superpowers and also from the European Union and also some countries like Global South. This will be contributing to be achieved long-lasting peace for a future.
Talking about the Global South, Mr. Minister, do you see a scope for India, for instance, to actually play a role in resolving this conflict?
Yeah, sure. India is also a very important stakeholder. We can guarantee some security.
And you can catch the entire interview at 8:30 p.m. IST and 1500 GMT on Thursday. Now, in a major offensive against Naxals, at least 30 members of the banned CPI Maoists were killed in two separate encounters in India's central state of Chhattisgarh. According to officials, 26 Naxals were killed in Bijapur district and 4 others were gunned down in Kanker area by a joint team of the BSF and DRG personnel of the state police. A police jawan was also martyred in the encounter at Bijapur. The gunfight broke out around 7 in the morning Indian Standard Time in a forest along the border of Bijapur and Dantewada districts when a joint team of security personnel was out on an anti-Naxal operation in Gangalore police station area in Bijapur. In a separate operation in Kanker district, 4 Maoists were killed in an exchange of fire near village Koroskodo in Chote Betia. Security forces were conducting combing operations when they came under attack and retaliated strongly. And India's Home Minister Amit Shah has lauded soldiers achieving another big success in the direction of Naxal Mukt Bharat Abhiyan or Naxal Free India campaign. And in sports, Khelo India Para Games 2025 were declared open by Union Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports Dr. Mansukh Mandavia on Thursday. Over 1,300 athletes were set to take part in the second edition of the Games. DD India's Abhishek Mahajan has all the details.
Khelo India Para Games 2025 officially began with a grand opening ceremony on Thursday. Union Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports Dr. Mansukh Mandavia declared the Games open at the Indira Gandhi International Stadium in the national capital, Delhi. Accompanied by Paralympic medalists in para sports Simran Sharma, Praveen Kumar, Nitesh Kumar, Preeti Pal and others, the sports minister participated in the torch relay.
तो हमारे मुख्य अतिथि और सम्मानित अतिथियों ने टॉर्च को कॉलड्रॉन पे रख दिया है, जो खेलो इंडिया पैरा गेम्स 2025 की आधिकारिक शुरुआत का प्रतीक भी है।
मुझे विश्वास है कि खेलो इंडिया पैरा गेम्स के द्वारा देश के पैरा एथलीट्स को खेलने की अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगी, उसकी टैलेंट, उसकी क्षमता आने वाले दिनों में देश और दुनिया में भारत के पैरा एथलीट्स अपना स्वयं का और देश का नाम रोशन करेंगे.
Part of Government of India's Khelo India initiative, this is the second edition of the Games, which kick-started with a glittering opening ceremony, witnessing an electrifying performance by Meet Brothers. The ceremony also displayed India's indigenous sport Mallakhambh. Not only this, the opening ceremony also ensured inclusion by showcasing an act curated by Divyangjans. The Games will be played across 3 venues: Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, IG Stadium and Dr. Karni Singh Shooting Range till March 27. It will be held in 6 disciplines: para-athletics, para-archery, para-powerlifting, para-badminton, para-table tennis and para-shooting. Over 1,300 athletes, 350 support staff and 150 volunteers are part of this edition. Following the inaugural edition in December 2023, Khelo India Para Games has emerged as a key national event for the para-athletes and has played a significant role in discovering and nurturing talent in India. With cameraman Monty Kumar Singh, this is Abhishek Mahajan in Delhi for DD India.
And before we wrap up this particular show, let's take a look at the spectacular visuals of festive celebrations organized in Turkmenistan's Kopetdag to celebrate spring holiday of Nowruz. The event witnessed song and poem presentations dedicated to Nowruz and the national traditions of Turkmenistan. The celebration came at a close with the preparations for semeni, a traditional Nowruz dish symbolizing the awakening of nature. That's all we have for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download the app now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live. Up next is Mark with the Economic Brief.